Before we start this video, I do want to say that the book covers some pretty serious topics. It covers all of these, including animal abuse, graphic violence, a lot of bigotry and kind of issues with religion and ethnic cleansing. So this is not a very nice book. If you're someone who's very sensitive to gore or anything like that, please do not watch this. This is not for you. Hello, my name is Yasmin. It's my first ever book review video. We're doing something crazy. We're going to read 7 books, 7 genres. And first up, we have fantasy. So I've been reading Wolf and the Woodsman. This is a debut novel, so we're going to be nice to it. I don't really like fantasy at all, to be honest. It's not my personal cup of tea. I feel like there's a lot of tropes and it's padded out with just like words. They're just saying anything. They're giving me so many names and I can't keep up. This book is pretty good so far. I'm about 100 pages in. So much has happened. So I'm gonna walk you through the plot summary, and then at the end we're gonna have a spoiler-free kind of review section. So if you don't want spoilers, skip to the timestamp here. Are you skipping? Are you doing it? Okay, so we're gonna get into it. First of all, this book follows our lead character. Her name is Yayyyyy. This is like a Hungarian book with like Jewish folklore influence, so if I butcher the names, soz. She is a pagan. They follow multiple gods, multiple old gods, and she doesn't have any powers. So a lot of them will have kind of fire powers, forging powers. They can forge metal. She got nothing. Her mother got taken away by these woodsmen that are part of like the big capital. They follow a different religion called the Patri faith or Patri faith. They take a girl every few years to kind of be like a sacrifice so they don't slime the rest of them out. It starts, our main character, she's been very badly bullied. She's staying with this older seer lady who's like taking care of her after her mum left, and she ends up having a vision, this older lady, and she's like, oh my god, the woodsmen, they're gonna come and they're gonna take a seer and we can't let them have that. So she makes our main character, she makes Yayyyyy dress up as a seer and pose as the sacrifice. So she gets taken into the woods. In the woods, one of the guards tries to kill her, okay? He tries to slime her out. He's super duper racist. He's like, we don't rock with you. Even though it's treason against the king, I'm still gonna kill you because you are such pagan scum that I cannot even deal with you. And she's like, duh, bruh. And there's a scene where she bites his ear off, like, and that's how I knew it was gonna get gory. She talks about like spitting muscle and sinew out, and I was like, oh, that's a lot. That's how I knew it was gonna get graphic. So anyway, they stop the guy from killing her, and the captain, he's got one eye. In this religion, they kind of believe in like, they get their powers from sacrificing parts of themselves. So a lot of the woodsmen have burnt their hair off and their scalp is all like burnt and gross. But the captain guy, he's got an eye patch, he's missing an eye, he sacrificed an eye. And they do this at very young, like little boys, like 10. So they don't believe in killing, but they do think that this guy has to suffer because he tried to betray the king. So they hold him down, chop his arm off. At this point, I'm thinking, yuck, that's so gross. It's icky, okay? Chop his arm off. They try and cauterize the wound. It didn't really work. He's bleeding, he's whimpering. They tie her to him. They're on a horse together. While they're on this horse together, getting through the woods, there's monsters in the woods and things. They're all very like on edge. He's telling her, you should thank your lucky stars, like you got saved, but honestly once you get to the capital you're probably dead anyway, because the king's son, one of them, his name is Nandor, he's like racist towards every other race basically, and he's been going around on the streets and he's been telling them these pagans need to go, they need to go. He's basically Hitler, but for this book. Not nice guy. And he's saying someone in the capital will kill you because we don't like your kind around here. And she's like, oh. Then they hear something, it's a rustling, they're like, oh, it's a chicken. And the guy falls off the horse and drags her with him, and she's like, oh my god, you're so dramatic, it's a chicken. The captain comes up, checks his pulse, he's dead. Then it cuts, they finally get out the woods, they settle down, they camp for the night. She can't sleep, she's thinking about him dying and everything, and kind of just like, ugh. The chickens come back and they're out of the woods, but the chickens have walked out and they're following them. And they turn into these like creatures. And I really, really liked the description here, because they described it as like, she looked closely and their eyes weren't eyes but clusters of flies. And I thought that was really cool, like really evocative imagery. I really like that a lot. They eat 2 of the soldiers. There was a party, there were 4 soldiers, including the captain. They eat 2 of them. So it's just her and the captain now, and they have to fight these monster things off. So they're like wading into the water trying to kill them. They finally do, and she realizes this captain sucks at fighting. He's bad. He cannot hold an axe properly. He can't swing. Like, she had to kind of save him. They had to help each other. And she's like, who even are you? You suck. And he's like, oh, I'm a prince. And he is the disgraced son of the king. The reason he's disgraced is because he's from the neighboring empire that they are at war against. I think he was born out of wedlock. And so he's trying to kind of, I guess, like, he's like Zuko. He's trying to get his honor back. And she finds, oh my God, I should have said this before. The whole time she has her mother's braid. Her mother got taken by the woodsman. She has her hair in her pocket and also a coin from her father. Turns out her father is like from a different race as well. So she's also mixed, which is why they didn't like her. There's a lot of like conversations about race in this book, which I think are good. It's just so far we have had so much lore in about 50 pages, and it's excessive. I'm really struggling to keep up, and I don't think I'm the only one that feels this way. I think a lot of the reviews have said there's excessive lore, and it's a lot, like trying to remember everything and every race. So they both admit to each other, like, she admits that she's not a seer, he admits that he's not really a very good woodsman. He's a prince. They make a deal. He says, okay, the reason my dad wanted a seer was because he needs to see what the enemy are doing and he needs to win the war. And she says, you're a hypocrite. You guys have literally painted us as savages and heathens, and now you want our magic to win the war. Grow up. And he's like, yeah, but it's better that he wins the war than he loses, and then my brother gets in power, because he will kill everyone who is an ethnic minority. He basically says, I can't bring you back to the king. You're not a seer. And she goes, yeah, I know. So are you going to let me go? And he's like, no, we need to find this. It's like a magical thing. I don't know. They need to find something to win the war. It's called it begins with a T. So they make this deal. They're like, okay. She says, in exchange for me helping you, you need to guarantee the safety of my village. And he says, I got you. Don't even worry. That was about 60 pages of this book, by the way. It is so much happens. I'm trying to get through it, and I'm just like, whew, wiping my brow every 5 minutes. It's a lot. Where I'm up to now, they've gotten across this like plain. There's a map I can show you. They are going through here, and they're trying to get to here. This is where her village was. They were on this plain, and they saw a light, and they were like, we should probably go over there. They go over there. There's a little settlement of people, and they're saying, oh, please, you have to help us. This woodsman, he's come to save us. Our people are going missing. She's obviously treated with disdain. They think she's a heathen. They think she's like a savage. He says, yes, I will help you. I'll kill this monster that's taking your people. Can you give us lodging for a night? And they're like, okay, yeah, but we need to tie up the wolf girl. This guy's really aggressive with her, ties her up. She's kind of like fighting back, saying, what the hell, dude? They get to the tent for the night. They have a conversation where she's like, why are you so obsessed with being a woodsman? Why don't you tell them you're a prince and just make them give you lodging? And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. Would you rather I treated you like a prince and I had you gagged for the way you're talking to me? And she's like, ooh. The next morning, they wake up. They can't find this monster anywhere. They're trying to find lunch. And she's a really good hunter. She's good with a bow and arrow. Kind of very typical, like, doesn't have powers, but she's so good at shooting things. Wow. And he cannot hunt for shit, which I like. I think it's a really nice detail that he is kind of useless, but he is good in other ways. Like, she is good at providing and hunting and doing what's necessary, and he's good at people and getting them to say things that he wants them to say, and without him she kind of won't be accepted, but without her he won't survive. I think it's a cool like balance. They need each other and they kind of hate it. It's a very stereotypical like enemies to lovers, but I think it's cute. She hunts, and she doesn't hunt for him because he's kind of being a dick, and she finds it really funny that he can't shoot anything. So she kills his hare, she goes back, eats it. She's sitting by the fire with the coin, Villager lady kind of comes up to her and is like, oh, what coin is that? Like, the king's people introduced coins to us before we started using them, but we could only use them with the merchants that he sent, and then they kept driving the prices up, and it was a whole corrupt thing. I thought it was a nice little conversation, but there is evidence that the race that her father was from is kind of looked at with disdain as well. It's not just the pagans, it's also his race, which is called the yayyyyy something. Yahuli people. Then the prince comes back. He couldn't find the monster. He's not having much luck. And they go to find the head guy of the village who tied her up really forcefully before, because they're like, we need to tell him, and he should be here. He should be supporting his people. They go into his tent. She starts digging around in his stuff. Turns out he killed these children and used their bodies as firewood. Ugh. It's messed up. She's like, oh my god, he's a murderer. And he comes in and he's like, yeah, and I don't even care. Like, these people, we are slowly dying. We need them for fuel. Like, we cannot be wasting dry logs. I'm sorry. And he has no remorse for what he's done. The prince is like, you need to repent. That's kind of the way they look at it. It's like, if you do something really wrong, you have to, like, chop off a pinky or something to repent. I don't know. The guy's like, no, I'm not repenting. Our main protagonist, she's like, I hate this guy. So she tries to kill him. He very easily overpowers her. She's very, like, blinded by rage. Threatens to kill her again. He's like, honestly, I think the death of a wolf girl, she's got a wolf cloak on, I should have said that, is more beneficial than, like, honouring the king. I don't care. I think this is religious and moral and right of me to do more than what the king is saying. And he tries to kill her. And we've found over the course of this story that the prince really doesn't like killing people. He doesn't want to do that. It's not something that he enjoys, and it's against his religion. He kills this guy for trying to kill Ibike. And that's where I've left off. This is genuinely 92 pages into the book. So much has happened. It's too much. It's too much. So I will update you when I'm done with the next section, and I will give you my thoughts. Okay. I have read the next 100 pages of the book. I'm about halfway through now. As we can see, a lot's happened, and we're kind of at a big point in the story, so I stopped that. Where we left off, they've just killed the man in the village. The villagers saw him and kind of made up their own story about it. They thought, well, he's a woodsman, so he must be a hero. And they thank him and they appoint a new leader. We see here that there are themes about patriarchy, as Ibike thinks that they might potentially make one of the women the leaders, but then she remembers that this village is kind of patriarchal and the women aren't good for anything, which is a contrast to her village. As we find out later on, the women are the ones with the magic. They try to light a fire for the townspeople. The prince doesn't have very strong magic, so he cuts himself, and she can see that he has lots and lots of cuts to make a really big roaring fire for the villagers. Then they leave. They set off for this place called Kaleva, which is a northern region. It's very icy, very cold, kind of Nordic inspired, to find this bird. It turns out it's a bird. I did some research, and it's a big part of Hungarian culture, this bird called the turul, I want to say. They set off for this northern region. They end up having to cuddle for warmth. It's very cliche, but it's cute. They cuddle for warmth, and they bond over their dead mothers and not remembering them. And it's quite a sweet little conversation where they connect a little bit. This is where she tells the prince that pagan women have powers. She tells him a story about this god of the underworld who took a human bride. She had her hand stuck in the mud, and he saw her hand and said, wow, you have a lovely hand. Like, I'd come down here and be my wife when you die. And she said, well, it's going to take me a long time to die. I mean, I'm not going to be lovely by the time I starve to death. Give me a dagger and I'll slit my throat and I'll show up at the underworld and I'll be lovely. And he's like, okay. So a dagger floats to the surface and she cuts her hand off and she escapes him. And then other trials and tribulations happen. They end up together and she's kind of a monstrous bride. Ibike tells Gaspar, the prince, this story, and it makes her think that night while he's asleep about the underworld and how maybe she should sacrifice for her powers. So she chops her pinky off randomly. It kind of comes out of nowhere. She just decides, I'm gonna just chop my pinky up. I'm gonna just try it. cuts her pinky off, right? And I wasn't sure at this point if she was having like a religious, she was like, maybe I'll go to the Patra faith. But it turns out she's doing this for the god of the underworld, who gives her these strange fire powers. She cuts her pinky off and it doesn't hurt anymore. She puts her hand in the fire to try and like burn it, and the fire goes out. She just puts the fire out. So she has these kind of hurting powers instead of healing powers. It's very interesting. And after this, Gaspar sees her and he's like, what the hell, dude? You're weird. You're a weirdo. He then tells Ivike that his dad was the one who took his eye, okay? So we were under the assumption that he sacrificed his eye very willingly at very young, was kind of groomed into it. Turns out his dad did it forcefully. We get a little bit of lore. His dad was a cruel person. Barely anyone stood up for him because he's mixed race in this world. They get to the forest. Ivike has this feeling that the Turul is there. The bird is there, and she goes to try and find it, but the trees kind of uproot themselves and chase them out. They're like, oh no. They're running, they're leaving. They end out like outside of the woods, away from the trees plant themselves down, and they're like, phew, and then they hear a crack. They are on a lake of ice. Ivike falls under, gets swallowed up. She's like, ugh, man. And she just accepts that she's dead. She's like, yeah, cool, I'll just drown, I guess. Obviously, Gaspar, he's like, well, I'm not going to let that happen. I need you to live. So he cracks open the ice, dives in, no hesitation after her, saves her, whatever. They both kind of pass out on the ice, and you're like, oh, that sucks. They're probably dead. But they wake up in this cabin with a bear. They're like, you guys see that? There's a bear over there. This lady comes in. She is part of a race called the yayyyyy people. They're kind of like, I want to say Nordic inspired, because the typical appearance is described as like blonde, blue eyes, that sort of thing. They have kind of powers with animals. She explains she's found their horses. It wasn't easy because usually her powers put animals to sleep and this sort of thing. They help her kill a reindeer that she's put to sleep for dinner. They meet another lady who I suspect they're girlfriends. They kiss. They meet another lady. She was part of the Patra faith religion before. She kneels before the prince and she's like, oh my goodness, I remember when you were a boy. And she also tells them a story about when their brother was a boy, the evil Hitler one. And he fell in the ice and came out and lived, and everyone kind of described him as a saint after that. They are worried at this point because they don't really have time to spare. They need to get this bird. She's worried about her father because her father is living in this area within the city, and if Nandor becomes powerful, then her father will be driven out, most likely. They go to leave that morning after they've slept and just make haste, and they haven't told the two women who saved them about what their goal is. They have to kill this bird, it turns out. It's a whole thing. And as she's climbing down the ladder, because this cabin is like on a ladder, I don't know how the bear got up there. None of my business. They're climbing down. The lady who is part of the Patra faith grabs them. She grabs Ivike and she's like, where are you going? I know what you're going to do. Like, it's not a good idea. Ivike, I can't remember what she says, but she makes a comment about them being lesbians that made me go, let me find it. The lady is being kind of wary of her because she is a pagan. Ivike kind of says, I've done nothing to deserve that. You know, neither of any of the other people you've met. And she says, well, you're the only one I've met. You've done nothing to earn my trust. And she clocks her. She says, it seems ill-fitting for someone who shares their bed with a UV to curl their lip at me. Do you take off your pendant before your coupling? So it makes her let go and Ivike escapes. And I thought, okay. So they head out. They go to the forest. They are looking for this bird. All of a sudden, Ivike gets picked up by a ginormous tree. She's getting tossed around like a sack of potatoes, okay? She's getting whooped. Gaspar's trying to kill the tree with his little axe. Nothing is happening. He's a whole lot. He's like the SpongeBob arm. Then all of a sudden, Tula, who is the UV woman from earlier, the girlfriend of the other lady, she tells the tree a riddle. And this tree is so fucking stupid that it goes, huh? And it puts her down and she's just free to go. And the lady explains, yeah, they're so dumb that if you tell them a riddle, they just have to stand still until they figure it out. It like breaks their brain. That got a laugh out of me. I'm not gonna lie, I did giggle. They find the bird. They decide not to kill it in the end because if she killed it, her whole tribe, from back home would reject her, everyone would hate her for it. And the prince is like, I don't want to put you in that position. That's sweet. So they decide not to do it, and they're gonna just like deal with it, I guess. I don't know why they decided this bird is so important, but all of a sudden it's just not anymore. Then Ivike goes to test her new powers. She's had this kind of feeling in her hand since she cut off her pinky of like black threads wrapping around it. So she puts her hand on a reindeer, one of the UV woman's reindeer, and she burns it. Not very nice. She leaves a handprint on this reindeer, which I think is a bit rude, but whatever. She's shown no remorse when it comes to killing animals. She needs to do it. Her and Gaspar are flirting, which, to be honest, I don't really care about. I know it's a big part of this book, but like, whatever. Yeah, you want to bang him. And there's kind of a little bit of like a element of she likes to tease him. She likes to see him react, which I think is fun. They leave together. I'm not gonna lie, at this point, I'm stressed. They're just gonna go into the city with nothing. She's a fraud. They don't have the Tyrrell. They've accomplished genuinely nothing other than almost dying multiple times. And they're like, yep, anyway. Okay. He tells her she's an idiot and to go back home. And obviously she doesn't listen. She's just down horrendous. While they're traveling, they walk back. There is a traveler's cabin, a village. An old lady, they beg some hospitality off of her. She says, yep, come in, I'll give you some food. They take food from her. As they're about to eat, the food turns into like worms and snakes and shit, and it's a witch. Now witches in this world are like clay people. They're not human, they're like monsters. The witch kind of drugs them or something with this food, and Gaspar is like slumped and he's gonna die, and Sophie's like, oh no, and she crawls along the floor and she grabs the witch's ankle and it like disintegrates. So she disintegrates her legs and then kind of just kills her, I guess. I don't really know. I find a lot of the combat scenes, you kind of don't know what's going on. It's written in a bit of an abstract way, and I guess it's to be fast-paced and confusing, but a lot of the time it just means I have to reread several times to understand what was real and what wasn't. She saves him. She drags him out. She cuts open his tunic to see the wounds and to see if he's safe, and he just kind of magically heals. And she's touching his abs and she's like, it's very heterosexual, and it's like super cliche, but it's fine, whatever. Like, if that's what gets your rocks off, then cool. Then they have a conversation after this where he's saying, you know, just go home. There's nothing for you in the city. You're gonna suffer. And she says, well, I'm gonna suffer back home anyway. You have no idea what it's like to have the people that are supposed to love you treat you with hatred for no reason. And then she realizes, oh, he's also mixed race, and that's also been his experience. He tells her about how his dad used to beat his mother, treat her horribly. She was wed to him as a gift between the nations. And as soon as she died from this sudden kind of fever, that was when the war started. But the dad was horrible to her, and he used to have to translate her pleading and him yelling between the two, and it was quite horrible. So Ivike kind of realizes, damn, I'm being an idiot. Obviously this guy relates. He's had a very similar experience. It's almost a little bit too similar. I wish that they differed a bit more, because it kind of makes her seem stupid that she didn't clock on. Anyway, they go into the woods outside of the big city. As they're going through, he sees like a naked lady, and they're like, is she okay? So they go after her, and they're like, oh, miss, are you okay? And she's some monster. She's talking in a language they don't understand, and then she attacks him. She bites Ivike on the neck, chomps down on her. Gaspar kills her. He's just gotten really good at just killing people with no remorse now, and it's kind of interesting to see the growth. Like, he cares more about her than his oath, even though he believes that he'll have to atone for this and that he's going to suffer in hell for it. I don't understand this bit. It's not very clear. Again, maybe I'm just not getting it, but I reread it. She gets bitten. There's a description of her being bitten, but then suddenly they both have red juice, like berry juice, in their mouths. Don't know how it got there. Don't know how it happened. It's apparently an aphrodisiac, because of course it is. So they're making out and they love each other, and he touches her boob and she's like, oh, and he's like, oh, and then he pulls away and he's like, no, I was drugged. That wasn't me. And she's like, yeah, it was. Actually, have you ever felt the touch of a woman? Are you just being weird because you're a virgin? And he's like, actually, they made me a woodsman at 20. I know what I'm missing, you dweeb. And she's like, oh, he knows how to fuck. I'm not gonna lie, that whole scene was super underwhelming and cliche. I don't really like, I see this a lot in like straight books. I hate to say it, but it's the truth, where they can only have sex if they're like under the influence of something, or if someone is coerced, or they wake up to it happening, or something like this. And it's like, just make them freaky, make them have normal sex as consenting adults. Why do you have to make them like have an aphrodisiac? Just let them like each other. It's okay, it's fine. Whatever, I don't even know how that happened. It felt like a kind of clunky segue into giving more tension between the characters. They're weird about it, and then they get to the city and they meet two woodsmen. The woodsmen come up and they're like, dude, your brother has been insufferable. Get this woman to the castle ASAP so we can win the war and shut him up. And he's like, cool. But he actually drops Yayyyyy off at the street where her dad is supposed to live. And it is kind of segregated. And that's where I've left off. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some cool conversations with her and her father, some character development, maybe some growth. She has been changing slowly, but she's still kind of very impulsive and like a bit insufferable, but it's okay. It's fine. I'm just interested to see where they go from here, because at the moment it's stressful. No one has a clear plan. They don't know what they're doing, and they're just going to try and overthrow like his brother, I guess. So I will reconvene with you when I've read another 100 pages or so. I'm back. I finished the last half of the book and I need to talk to you about it. If I look like a bum, it's because I genuinely woke up, brushed my teeth, and I have to record this because I've been thinking about this book, and if I'm honest, I'm so relieved it's over. Like, it's been stressful. I've been stressed. Where we left off, she is on the street looking to find her dad. And she's on the street, she's knocking on doors, and she's using the name that she was previously told for her dad. The people are like treating her with so much disdain. They're like, what do you want? Or slamming the door in her face or whatever. And someone else says, we don't use that first name here. It's what like the Patrifaith people use to avoid saying our yayyyyy names. They just call us all this. It's a slur, basically. It's a slur for the yayyyyy people. And she's been knocking on doors asking, where can I find, and calling him a slur. She's like annoyed with Gaspar. She's like, why would you not tell me? Like, that's insane. He was like, oh, I thought you knew. Which, dude, help her out. And then they knock on another house and she uses his actual name and she's like, hey, where can I find this guy? And the lady's like, did you not hear? He's been arrested for working on a Patrifaith holy day. She's like, so she goes into the square and she sees her dad being made to stand on the corpse of a pig, being tormented by Nandor. She's shocked because he's so gorgeous. He's so beautiful. She thought he would be evil, but he's really pretty and charming, and she can see how people would like him. In my notes, I put, he's pretty, so what? It turns out the reason he is making her dad kneel or stand on this dead pig, and it's gruesome, it's like eyes are cut out and all of it, so it's not nice, is because they cannot touch or eat pig. So it's obviously a reference to some other religions, and this guy is looking for an excuse to torment him, basically. He's made up an issue that isn't really actually an issue. The whole reason they have yayyyyy people is so that they can work on the days where the Patrifaith people cannot, but he's now dragged him into the square and humiliated him, basically for nothing. They have a debate, her and Gaspar, and she's like, I need to say something, I need to stop this, I can't watch this is awful. And Gaspar's like, what are you going to do in this situation? Like, how are you going to stop anything? But obviously she can't help herself, she goes, stop. And so Nandor kind of goes up to her, he takes her horse, and then they kind of drag her back to the castle and to the dungeon. So Gaspar is obviously kind of chastising her. He's saying, why you gotta play into stereotypes so bad? Like, why do you have to be so impulsive and make life hard? And I actually like this conversation. I think that this is a conversation that has a lot of nuance and is kind of mirroring some real world dynamics, where she is tired of always being attacked and wants to fight and wants to defend herself. And the people around her are saying, you need to stop defending yourself because you're making your image worse and hurting your group more. And I think that's a really tricky position for her to be in. And I like that. I like that she has to kind of decide, do I go against what I feel is right for the sake of everyone, or do I stand up for myself in this situation where I'm being mistreated? He says that if his brother finds out that Gaspar and Ivike have been together, that he will torture her. He'll make her life so miserable before she dies because he just has to ruin anything Gaspar likes, basically. He's not a good brother. She keeps asking, she's like, you have to tell me what the king does with the girls. Like, you told me you would tell me what he does. When they first made the deal ages ago, he will not tell her. And she's like, this is not good. Like, I'm so dead. They wash her and they dress her, and there's this little scullery maid girl, and she's like, she looks northern, and she doesn't want to get dressed, but the maid looks so scared that she's like, oh, fine. Like, I'll put these clothes on even though they're too tight, and she kind of splits them at the seams, which is quite funny. There have been mentions of her being curvier or bigger than other pagans, but I don't know how big pagans are, so I don't really have a frame of reference. But she's spoken about having like bigger chest or like wider shoulders than others, so I'm assuming she's quite like a grown lady. I don't really know. There's a huge feast and she sees the king for the first time and she's kind of underwhelmed. She's like, wow, this guy looks like mediocre, like he just looks like some guy. There was a line that made me giggle so bad. He has the look of a man who grew his beard long and grey for the precise purpose of hiding a weak chin. I loved that line. That's so funny. Why would you say that about him? This is where it gets scary. Okay, well, I was scared. I was in my little coffee shop reading this and I was like, he has a crown and she's like, that crown is ugly. Like, why is it that color? Why is it so weird? And then she looks, it's fingernails. He has a crown made from the fingernails of the pagan women he has dragged over here and killed. He uses this fingernail crown to basically steal pagan magic, which obviously she's like, what the hell? Like, this guy hates us and he's just taking our magic. Like, how are you gonna do that? Then it gets way worse. So he brings in these counts from the different areas where the different tribes are, so like the north and the wolf guy from the kind of pagan area, all of this, and he has them drag in the animals that kind of represent their clan and they kill them, and it's disgusting. It goes into so much detail about how they're like really weak, scraggly, abused, scared animals, and they kill them as this act of, look, we've bested the mighty beast. And the mighty beast is just a dog that's scared. It's a scared dog. Oh, it's awful. I was in my coffee shop, I was reading this, I was like, oh, oh my god, it was awful. It was really, really good descriptive imagery. And you could just feel this sense of like just horror and dread. But I don't do animal abuse, and that had me like, I still think about it, it's awful. She then is the one being analysed. You know, there's this big ceremony, they're all kind of, they want to steal her magic or whatever. We get the sense Gaspar has told the king that he knows that she has no magic. Like, he knows that she doesn't have powers in seeing. But he says, let me test and see if you have any powers in anything else, if you could be useful in any other way. So she proves basically, I can't forge, I can't heal, I can't do this. I suck. He's like, fine, whatever. So Nando's like, okay, now we kill her, right? Like, why would we let her live? Like, let's just kill her, let's just kill her. And the crowd is like agreeing. They're like, yeah, get rid of her, she's stupid. And Gaspar's like, but he can't say anything, you know, because he's in the court and whatever. And she's surprised by how little power Gaspar takes for himself. He could have more, like Nando, if he wanted, but he's always very placid and very agreeable and princely and doesn't say anything against the king. The king tries to strike her down with his sword and she panics and she just disintegrates it. She's like, I don't really want to die. He's like, what? She grabs his wrist and she says, I can kill you right here, right now. All I gotta do is decide to. And he's like, oh, and they make a deal. He's like, I don't suppose I could get you to give up your fingernails. And she's like, no, but I will serve by your side and we can have this kind of like protector king dynamic. And he says, okay, cool, yeah. The conditions of this deal, her dad is freed from the dungeons. But she doesn't say that it's her dad, but she says, free the yayyyyy man from earlier. Free him. Leave my village alone. You do not take any more wolf girls. You leave them be. I feel like there was something else. Yeah, like no harm will come to her, basically. I think those were the conditions. I might have forgotten something, but I think that's it. So she goes to the dungeon to free her dad. He doesn't recognize her, but she recognizes herself in him because he's so fiery and he has kind of this fighting spirit that she's like, oh, I have that. And she shows him the coin in her pocket because she's had, if we remember, her mother's braid, her father's coin. She shows him the coin and she's like, look, you gave me this, you're my dad. And he's like, what? How did you get that? Like, there's only like one of these probably in existence. They've been getting rid of all of them because they didn't like the yayyyyy words on them. And he shows her this yayyyyy specific magic where when they write something, it kind of becomes true. And if they erase it, it stops being true. So he gets rid of the word for truth is emet. I want to say like E-M-E-T. I think when he gets rid of the E, it becomes met, which is dead. As he like erases these letters, the coin turns to dust. She's like, that's interesting. I like that. But because she's a pagan, she cannot read or write. She used to be able to read a little bit that he taught her when he would come and visit, but she can't read or write right now. So he says, if you come visit me sometime, I'll start to teach you how to write. And we can work on that together. She then goes out into like kind of the courtyard or something. Nandor corners her. He's like, let me show you around. Let me show you some statues. And she's like, I don't trust this guy. This guy is not trustworthy. But she doesn't feel she has a choice, and she also kind of doesn't want to let him see her be like, ooh. So she goes to the statues with him. He shows her all these different kind of saints, and she realizes a lot of them are kind of just different iterations of her gods or her figures that they admire. Like there'll be a story that's very similar, but just slightly different, so that the god is different, the religion is different, but it's like the same concept. And he shows her the statue of Saint, I want to say it's Istvan, who is kind of their like original king. He's the one that started the religion. But Saint Istvan is also considered kind of like a pagan figure, like a pagan god, but they're just seen in different ways between the religions. They've got this statue, and he's got his original sword, she thinks, because it's all rusted and it's like, yeah, it looks like it's aged. And she thinks, well, they wouldn't have had an ugly sword in there if it wasn't his actual sword. Then they hear some fighting sounds, and it's Gaspar teaching his younger brother Matty to like sword fight. She thinks, well, I hope he's better with a sword than he is with an axe, because as we saw, he was not good with an axe. And it turns out he is, because he spars Nandor and he lets Nandor win. He takes like a step back and he kind of lets him win, and no one else says anything about it. I don't know if they noticed, but she noticed that he let them win. Oh, important detail. During this time conversing with Nandor, she accidentally lets it slip in their conversation that the man that she asked to be freed was her father. And he's like, interesting. And we know his evil ass is going to use that against her later, obviously. Oh, goodness gracious me, whatever. While the two are sparring, Matty tells her that Nandor is in like a tough spot because he is obviously this good patrifaith man, right? But for him to take the throne, even if everyone was like, yeah, he's great, give him the throne, he's awesome, he needed to be the true son, the firstborn son, or the full-blood son, born in a marriage, because otherwise, if you're born out of wedlock, it kind of goes against his religion for him to be given the throne next. It doesn't make sense. So he's in a really tough spot because he's using these patrifaith values to rally support, but if he were to accept the crown, then he would be going against this religion that he's using. This means that obviously the king has to die, but so does Gaspar, is the thought that she's having. She's like, oh, well then he's just going to want to not be alive. After this, she goes back to her room and she finds a note and she cannot read it and she's smudged all the ink. So she thinks, I'll take this to my dad. He'll tell me what it says. So she goes to find her dad. They start to learn to read and write. And her dad also says, like, I've got no idea what's in that note. You've smudged it, like, way too bad. So just don't even worry about it. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. It's a nice kind of sweet moment with her and her dad where she meets the woman that's been taking care of him. And this woman does say something about her and yayyyyy, which she's like, She realizes that she kind of wants to learn about this other side of her life, that her and her dad are different in a lot of ways, but similar in a lot of ways, and it's comforting for her to see where this kind of comes from. She's going to a lot of meetings with the king to protect him, and the counts from opposing tribes are kind of desperate. They're saying, we need to do something, like, we can't keep giving you men, we need to get the yayyyyy out. Some of them are saying, no, they're not a problem. But there's this one count who's big and loud, and he's saying, we should ship them out. Why shouldn't we? Why can't they just go live in this place on their own? They probably prefer it, where they're not facing the same issues they face here anyway. Let's just give them a nice little place on their own, which is obviously segregation, but you know. And the king is saying, you guys don't actually get to tell me what to do. Give me more soldiers and I will fix this. She feels kind of tamed at this point, because the king is like asleep at the wheel. He feels like he's not even there most of the time. And she's just standing around, like she says, like a dog, waiting in case that something happens. And it's weird for her because, as we know, the whole story, she's been super like, you know. She holds her tongue for once. She doesn't want to get her dad or his people in any more trouble by her talking. So she manages to hold her tongue. Then the king takes her to a church, or like their chapel. There is a naked man statue with all his junk out. And Evike wonders, she's like, oh, how did Gaspar turn out like so prudish if he's been kneeling at this guy's dick every time he prays? That's kind of crazy. I don't really know who this guy was because he kind of seemed like a human with super strength, like Hercules vibes. I didn't really pay attention, to be honest, but he's some guy. There's a lot of stories in this book and I just cannot keep track of them. I'm so sorry. I have so many notes. I'm not writing down every story I read. So while they're at this chapel, the two brothers are there, and also the king. The king prays for wisdom to end the war. Nandor obviously prays for strength to do what weak men cannot. Like, okay. Interestingly, Gaspar doesn't pray for anything. He confesses that he has killed 2 men and asks for his soul to be absolved. Gaspar has confessed this to an archbishop called the Ishek, and he is basically like, yep, you're good. I mean, you killed those people, but like, I say you're good, so you're good. And then they all give him their little gold coins and he puts them away, and he staggers with the weight of the coins out of the church. And I was like, okay, well, I wonder if this guy is evil, right? So it's obviously corrupt. The other 2 leave, and there was a scene with the heterosexuals that did actually get me in the end. The king and Nandor leave. It's her and Gaspar. He admits that he begged for Evike's life. He was going to the king, he begged, he wept, he was like, please, please, please don't kill her, please, I like her. She kind of asks as a joke, but she was like, did you kneel? And he looked at her, and instead of taking it as a joke, he looked at her and he was like, yes, yeah, I did. And this kind of, she's like, I think he might be into me. And that was cute. I liked that. I liked that he was like, yeah, I openly begged my father for you to live. Because obviously, as we know, the whole story, she's seen him as quite like tame, and he would never ask for anything or go against the king's wishes, and he wants his approval. Then we have a reading montage, and her dad is like funny. Like, he's telling her stories, he's making her laugh, he's keeping her engaged. But when she mentions, hey, wouldn't it be nice for your people to live somewhere where you're not being like treated like shit all the time? Wouldn't you like to maybe move out of here? And he's like, no, those are slums. Like, we're not allowed to own land over there. The ground isn't fertile. We can't grow any crops, really. We can't sell our wares. People come regularly to hate crime, those parts of the world. Like, it's not a good place to live. We would not be happy. And we were here before everything else. How do you think our temples were so grand and you know, that we have all these things that we have? They've been living in the big city for longer than the Petrofaith people. So he gets quite upset about this. Then they have a holy day, a yayyyyy holy day, that she spends with her dad, where this lady, Batia, who's been looking after her dad and feeding him, she gives her one of her daughter's dresses. She says, wear this. And she's learned enough yayyyyy by this point to know that Batia called her chubby the first time she met her, and that makes her annoyed. She feels kind of self-conscious. They go to the temple. The rabbi is telling this story. Everyone's shouting and cheering and kind of engaged. And one of the daughters whose dress she's borrowed is kind of asking her questions that seem rude, but she can tell that they're not meant in a rude way. They're just asking. And there's this really sweet moment. She's kind of saying, oh, I feel out of place. Like, I don't feel like I belong here. And the daughter's like, why not? You can convert. You're not that special. Like, there's no reason you couldn't fit in if you wanted to. If you wanted to be a part of this. And she's like, oh. And she looks over at the end of the story, everyone's holding hands, and she feels like, oh, man, I wish I was part of this family. I don't feel like I understand any of it. And then her dad takes her hand and they just sit there, and it's very sweet, and she kind of feels very loved. After the ceremony, or I don't know what you call it, like the service, they kind of are all chatting, drinking wine, eating. But obviously this book will not let me feel joy for longer than one paragraph, because I was having a good time. And of course Nando comes down the road. He's storming the street with his little band of angry Petrofaith people, and they're going, "Rrr, look at them cheering while our country is in war," and whatever. And he goes up to Vicky, and he's kind of like, he implies that he knows about her and Gaspar, and he wants to kill Gaspar. He comes over, and there's obviously this threat that violence is going to break out. Everyone has gone quiet. Everyone is looking. Everyone's holding their children, you know. And he drinks from her cup, and he smashes it on the ground, and he turns them all around, and he walks away. No one wants to be outside. They all go inside. They're not celebrating anymore. She's really visibly distressed, whereas the others are kind of like resigned. They've seen this kind of thing before. They've seen worse. This treatment's been going on for a while, but she's just like so sad about it because she's found this community and they're being mistreated really bad. Her dad, to cheer her up, tells her a story about this clay man. And as he says this, Batia's daughter is like, ugh, again, like, I don't want to hear this story again. I'm so tired of this. And Evike feels comforted by the fact that she had the same thing with the lady who took care of her back home, Virag. She used to tell stories, and Evike would just be like, oh my God, I've heard this one 6,000 times. Can we not? The story of the Clayman is that a rabbi wanted to help his people, and he prayed to God. And he said, God, please help me. Like, I'm lost, whatever. And God told the rabbi his true name. The rabbi wrote it down so that he didn't forget. And then he went to the riverbed and he made a man out of clay, like a clay sculpture. And in the mouth of this clay man, he put the name of God. And the clay man came alive. And so when the Petrofaith came to hurt the yayyyyy people, the clay man was so big and strong, and the pitchforks did no damage, and he protected them and he sent them away. And when the rabbi wanted him to be clay again, he just took the name of God out of his mouth. And there's a scene where she kind of realizes she's the clay man in this story. They want her to be the clay man. They want her to be this strange thing that's come to save them. And her dad leans over and he whispers the name of God into her ear. Then she's heading back to the castle because they're done celebrating. She's going back for the night. And she has to blink and rub her eyes. She's like, And they have another wolf girl. As you remember, she made a deal with the king that they wouldn't harm her village. They wouldn't take any more. And she sees they have taken Catalin, the girl who used to bully her relentlessly. They've taken her because she's a seer. She confronts the king. She bursts in. She's like, what the hell is wrong with you? We had a deal. I will kill you right here. Come on, man. The king actually surprises her because he turns to her and he says, what would you do? Give me your counsel. What would you do in this situation? I need to win this war. I need to see her. to see what she sees even. She kind of is just as frustrated. And I like the idea that's introduced in this scene that the king, for all of his patrifaith ways, is not exempt from history. He's not exempt from pagan traditions or yayyyyy traditions or their magic or their people. He needs them just as much as he needs his own. And I think that's interesting and a good social commentary, obviously. Then she goes back to her chambers. This was where I could not leave it on a cliffhanger. Scullery maid comes in, the one from before, and she says, oh, I've got like a dress for you. The king's asked that you wear it, blah, 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 blah. She's like, okay, fine, give it here. She stabs her. The scullery maid stabs her. And she's like, oh, so sorry. And she stabs her like in the shoulder. It's really gross. She's like, I'm so sorry, but he said he'd be really happy with me if I did it. And she knows that when the scullery maid says he, she means Nandor. Nandor comes in and in my notes, I literally just put, he's so gross. He's so gross. He's always so annoying about everything. He thinks he's so charismatic, and maybe he is, but honestly, I just want him dead. He's so like cliche charismatic man. He's like, I think I'd prefer that you kneel. I'd like to see you on your knees. And he like pushes her. And I was like, oh my god, you're so pathetic. It turns out as well, this made me giggle. It turns out that before he tried to kill her on one of the first days she was at the castle, he gave her the note, and it was like to meet at some place so that he could stab her or something. And because she couldn't read, she just didn't go. She just said no. She was like, yeah, cool, whatever. I'm gonna go see my dad. So it saved her, and I thought that was funny. I liked that. She tries to kill him. He says something about her and Gaspar, and he like regenerates. He just has to pray, and then his skin heals up. It's not super clear how this works, and it isn't made super clear, which did frustrate me. I wanted to know the workings of that magic. I think that would have been good. He leaves her to die. He leaves her to bleed out, which rookie fucking mistake. Why would you do that? You've seen how much this lady wants to live, and you're just gonna be like, yeah, I'll just let you bleed out. It's cool. But he thinks she's as good as dead, so he just leaves her. And she staggers over to Gaspar's like room, and he patches her up, and he's like, I don't understand this book. This bit really frustrated me. They decide then that they have to kill this bird. They have to kill the turtle, right, from before. Remember when she was like, yeah, I'll be disgraced forever and ever, and I'll never be able to go back, and blah, blah, blah. Now she's like, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. But if she does this and she helps the king win the war, she has a feeling that the yayyyyy people will still suffer. And I don't really understand it. She's picking between pagan and yayyyyy, but I'm not actually sure why. Like, why she's doomed them. But the book kind of says that she has. And who am I to question the book? Oh, I think it's because the king is thinking about moving them out. But I'm not sure that he was. So I don't even know. Whatever. But yeah, apparently she feels like she's betrayed them, and she's kind of betraying the pagans as well, because this turtle is a very sacred bird. They free Catelyn, and she has a vision. They kind of induce a vision by holding her head underwater. There's a way to do it. She has a vision of where this bird is, so they set off and they find it again. And you're getting major deja vu. Like, it's crazy. Her and Gaspar have sex for the first time, I think, because she was asking, she's like taking a walk down memory lane when they're like by the fire and Catelyn's asleep, and she's like, did you love me or did you hate me at this point in our journey before? And he kind of said like, I think I hated you for being the warmest thing for miles, and I think I loved you here for this and that and whatever. And then she tells him to kneel, and then they go to Pound Town and they do the bow chicka wow wow. And thankfully I didn't have to read too much of it. It was kind of just like mentioned. And they wake up and they go and they find the turtle. As they get to this tree, the lesbians from earlier are there. So the UV woman and the Patrifaith woman are there with the bear, and they're like, we cannot let you do this. This bird is sacred. You southerners cannot just come up here, kill our sacred bird and leave. And they're like, no, listen, we have to. So they start fighting. And there's this really interesting thing where they do a mixture of Patrifaith and UV magic to heal the bear. And I'm not sure how it works, but it was cool. And I'm just going to choose not to think about it, because if I think about it, I'm probably going to find plot holes, and I just don't want to do that right now. As they're fighting, Idike remembers a phrase the lady that raised her told her, and it's like, it's basically as above, so below, but in old pagan. She It's like, oh, I gotta go to the underworld. On it, boss. So she goes and runs out into the icy lake and goes back in. And obviously they're like, oh my god, what is she doing? But she just kind of accepts it. She's floating down. And then there's like a pull, and she is falling onto this tree. Like she's fine now, I guess. She's just in the tree and she has to climb it, and she sees the bird. And they kind of look at each other, and she has this moment of like, she's weeping. She's like, I don't want to kill this bird. I like this bird. I don't want to kill it. Like, the pagans will never ever forgive me. And then she kind of is like, well, I was never one of them anyway. And she puts her hand on its chest, and it just kind of dies. And it's really sad and small. And there's so much animal death. It's gross. I don't like it. So now she's got this drill. She comes down, and, you know, they get seized by the king's woodsmen, who have gone to kind of get them and get the bird. She brings the bird back to him, and she's lost her powers now that she's killed the bird. Like, she's been punished by the gods for killing this sacred bird. They serve it to the king. He's obviously very appreciative. She feels weak now that she doesn't have her magic, and as she's getting ready for this feast, she kind of pulls the cloak over her head, and she's like, ugh. And Catelyn is like, stop it. You need to hold your head high. You need to lock in and stop acting like some weak little girl when you're not, okay? You do not give them any more power over you. And she's like, okay. And they have kind of this like camaraderie where before they hated each other, they couldn't stand each other. And now in this face of the greater danger, they're like, okay, yeah, maybe we need to just be nice to each other. The king, oh my god. He goes in, he's like, okay, time to eat this bird. They bring the bird out, and it's like fully alive. He plucks its eyes out and he eats them. And then he can't handle the heat. Okay, this bird gives you the power. The reason he wants it, this bird gives you the power to see everything. You can see what's happened, what's happening, what will happen everywhere. You can see everything. And he cannot handle it. The visions are way too much for him. He's clawing out his own eyes. He's like, make it stop. It's too much. It's too much. This bird has died for nothing. Nandor stabs him in the back, and he tries to usurp him. And he is kind of like, okay, it's go time. Everyone ready for my coronation? And they killed one count, the nice count from the north. They've chained up all the others. Some of the woodsmen who wouldn't revolt are being put in dungeons right now. It's like a coup, you know? He's saying, tomorrow you are gonna watch me get crowned. He gets the archbishop to come over, and he burns the crown in front of the archbishop, who thought he was gonna crown him. He's like, I don't want that pagan gross nail crown, yuck. And then he tells the archbishop, he's like, I don't trust you because you've killed the previous king before this one. You killed the king's wife from mysterious illness, which is Gaspar's mother. He killed her. And you killed this king. You helped me kill this king. So why would I want you around? And the archbishop is like, no, I'm so trustworthy. I was waiting for the right evil king. You're the blessed one. Like, I was waiting to serve you. And he's talking a lot of talk, but obviously that doesn't work. And Nandor like prays, and he goes full on Vecna on this guy. He like snaps his bones. He forges a crown of like iron, of hot iron, and puts it on his head. Ugh, gross, icky, yucky. Says he melts like a candle. Ugh. Then he brings in Evike's dad. He brings him in, and he's like, ow. And he's obviously teasing Evike about this, and he forges a new crown out of gold for this guy. And he's like, okay, well, now we have this deal. We can all be fine now, right? Because he's made a deal with him that he'll make him this new crown, and it's beautiful, this new crown. He forged it in a really intricate way. He's like, now we have this deal, we're good, right? And obviously they are not good. Look at this man, he hates you. So he drags him off to the dungeon, whatever. Vika's like, oh, no. And then he tells Gaspar, he's like, you're gonna crown me tomorrow. Actually, you're gonna do it, because if you don't, I'm gonna kill our little brothers. And Gaspar's like, oh, okay. Then Evike is in her room. He sent her back. He wants to kill her the next day at his coronation after he's been crowned. And they drag in Gaspar, who's been kind of beaten and is bloodied and whatever, I don't really know. And they have this really cute little scene where they're like, okay, we're probably gonna die tomorrow, so let's just talk. And they just talk, and they tell each other stories, and they chat about life, and they hold each other, and it's really quite sweet, and I like that for them. They get to the coronation the next day. Her and Catelyn bond because they've been put together, and this girl is like, yeah, you guys need to braid each other's hair. soz. He said he wanted to do him the full pagan braids and everything. And they're chatting and they kind of talk about how Catelyn hated her for being useless and still loved, whereas she was only loved because she was useful, and this kind of thing. At the coronation, this did feel like a plot convenience. I'm not gonna lie to you, because you're thinking, how are they gonna get out of this? What's gonna happen? And all that happens is Catelyn has a vision, and she's like, oh my god, the pagans are coming. They're storming the capital. And then there's a big diversion, obviously. Everyone just breaks out fighting. The pagans all come in. She's freed. She goes down to the dungeon. She frees the UV woman and the Petrifaith woman and their bear. And everyone's fighting. She frees her dad, I think. I hope. And she sees like wolf girls kind of killing woodsmen and woodsmen killing wolf girls and all of this going on. And it was cool. It was like, yeah, but it did feel like completely out of nowhere. There was absolutely no indication from the pagans that they wanted to revolt at any time. So I don't really know what happened there. But the closest thing to that was that maybe Virak had a vision. She sees Nandor and Virak actually fighting, and she's like, fuck, he's gonna kill her. He knocks Virak off her horse, and she, without thinking, just jumps in front of it, and she's like, no! And she gets stabbed in the arm again. Oh my god, girl, get it together. You're gonna be like the guy that died at the start in a minute. And Virak Nandor needs to stop doing this, okay? He stabs her, and then he's like, you're stupid. And then he goes off again. And it's like, you've left her to die twice. You know she is not gonna die. She's right next to a pagan that can heal. Chop her head off. We are not using our brains. So Virak heals her, obviously, and she kind of implies that maybe she had a vision that Ivica would save her one day or something. And they go and they keep fighting. She sees that Nandor has been kind of wounded and is running towards the chapel, like the tunnel for the chapel. And she's like, I'm gonna go sort him out because he will regenerate really, really quick. And I just need to, finish the job. She follows him in. He's regenerating, obviously. She gets her bow and arrow. And before she can shoot him, he prays and he knocks her over. And it knocks the molars out of her back of her mouth. He straddles her, gets on top of her, starts pulling her teeth out because he's just a weird little freak. One thing about this guy is he's just weird and freaky. In every situation, he does what a weird little freak would do. Why are you pulling out her teeth in the middle of a giant battle? Just stop it. While Nandor is grabbing her teeth and stuff, she buys herself some time because she writes the yayyyyy word for dead on him. And he starts to kind of disintegrate, but then he doesn't die. I don't know if he prays again. It didn't really say that he did, but he kind of starts disintegrating and he hops off her. He doesn't kill her. So that was nice. That was a nice callback that they used the yayyyyy magic, I think. Ridiculous. And so they have this kind of fight, and Gaspar comes in and he's like, stop! I'm a hero. And they fight, and he takes the sword from the statue of St. Istan, I think, which I thought it was in a courtyard, but I think it's in a chapel now. Or maybe they were in the courtyard again. He takes the sword. He says his little phrase. He lights it on fire. He's fighting with a fire sword of the original king. And Nando's like, that's the original king's, you can't touch that. And Gaspar's like, it's my birthright, bitch. So they're fighting, and Gaspar obviously beats him because, as we know before, he let him win. Nando's on his knees. He's like, I ask you now for mercy. And Gaspar is such a fucking idiot that he's like, yeah, that's cool. Just don't come back here ever. Just go live in exile. And then obviously Nandor betrays him and starts praying and tries to kill him and whatever. He grabs a little dagger that he's forged or prayed for or something, and he kind of flings Gaspar's sword away and holds him up at throat point or whatever. And he's all like, I'm gonna make you watch me kill him if you can. I'm gonna make you watch me, because he's a little freak. And so Vika just shoots him in the throat, and then he dies. So he can't pray his way out of that one, I guess, because his throat doesn't work. I'm not sure how the praying works. I don't know if he needs to be able to physically say it, if he just needs to think it, if he needs to hold his hands together, or what. But he dies. He just dies. And I kind of just looked at her and I was like, huh? Okay, yeah, sure, he's dead. Oh my god, this book is so stupid. So she kills him and she says to Gaspar, she's like, oh, I'd hate for the new king to have like a blackened soul, but I don't mind doing it. I can kill him. And then obviously the pagans kind of win. It's epic. Then obviously everyone claps and there is a big rainbow, and we kind of time skip and he's got a new council that's very diverse. Her dad is on it. They had like elections within New Holy Street, and basically everyone's happy and everyone loves each other. I did like that the last scene was people telling stories and her writing them down. I thought that was cute. So overall thoughts. I have them. I think to start with the positive, they had really interesting characters, and I think the author thought about each character very well and considered the ways in which they differed and the ways in which they related. I thought that was good. They had strong characterization. I think that there was some really nuanced and well-researched understandings of different religions, different faiths, and how they intersect, and the history of religion and how it's usually you can't have one without the other in a lot of modern religions. Things like that I thought was really interesting. I liked that all these different communities would tell different stories, but they felt kind of like the core of them was the same. And clearly it does say about the author that she has degrees in political science, focusing on religion and ethno-nationalism. So this is someone who obviously knows about these topics and is trying to portray them in a way that is kind to everyone. I liked that with the powers there wasn't a true god. It wasn't like, oh well, my pagan god is right and yours is wrong. It was like all of them had their own magic from their own gods. And although they believed in their god, they couldn't really deny that this was working for these other people, and I don't really know how that was explained, but I did like it. The things I didn't like so much, I felt like there were some plot holes, or if they weren't plot holes, I felt that it wasn't clear that they weren't. Like, there were times where things would change or there would be plot conveniences and you weren't really sure what changed or why the character would suddenly do that, or how the character could do that. I thought a lot of the combat scenes were confusing. Like, I had to read them multiple times and I still didn't really know how it happened. The writing itself was good. It was easy to read, like, the prose, but it just didn't always make sense. Like, logically, it didn't make sense to me. So there were a lot of points where I was just kind of like, huh? But it was still fun. The ending did feel a bit like it was just wrapped up super neatly out of nowhere. I feel like I would have liked to see some more indications that that would happen. I also felt like she tried to do something different with the main characters being kind of like, Ivika's more of the fiery one, and it's not like this submissive little girl that a lot of books will kind of have you read. And yeah, I think that there was just, it was a good read, but it was stressful the whole time. And this is something I wouldn't say is good or bad. This is neutral. I do not like to read things that are gory and that have me stressed out. And I had a feeling this would have some gore. I just didn't think it would have quite as much. And I was stressed the entire time reading this book. I did not get a break, okay? So if you're someone who likes an easy read like me, like a light read that's more character focused, this is probably a very stressful book for you. And I would say that it's enjoyable enough to experience and you do care about what happens. Like, I did want to know what happened and how they get out of it. I just think that it was so much gore and really heavy themes, and it just was a lot. So if you're someone who likes to get into it, that likes like gore and action and like the heavy stuff, I think this would be a really fun read for you. I just found there was so much exposition and so much world building that it was a bit oversaturated and that it was heavy, and I couldn't really fully take it all in, I think, as best as possible. Having said this, I think this is really a good debut novel. Like, she came out, she had unique characters, she had a really clear concept. I think when writing fantasy, it is really hard to keep on top of all the magic laws and the world building and all of this, and there were some questions that I had that were unanswered, but I don't regret reading this book. I think I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars, just because there are things that did like actively bother me, and it wasn't my personal taste. But I do think that in the hands of someone who really likes fantasy, this could be a lot of fun. In the next video, I am not reading another fantasy. I'm gonna read something way more chill. So yeah, it's been real, and I'll see you then.